This is the ENVE Fray, the company's distinctive take on the modern all-road bike, a category that's an upgrade from the classic endurance bike. In this video, I'll tell you what it is, what it's all about, how it performs, how it compares, what I like and don't like about it, and who I think would be best riding it. Hi, I'm Steve from the InTheKnowCycling.com website and YouTube channel that's subscription-free, ad-free, and sponsor-free. Okay, let's roll. I'm always looking at new bikes and perhaps looking for my next new bike to add to my collection or replace something that I want to get. And that's the perspective I bring to this review. It's obviously a personal perspective. What might work for me might not work for you. Let me tell you just a little bit about me and my riding, and perhaps you can relate as I think about and talk about this bike. I ride a lot of rolling terrain, both on road and gravel. Typically on the weekends, I'll do 50 to 100 mile road or gravel rides, and I'll do hour to hour and a half structured training during the week. I'm a middle-aged guy, not as flexible as I used to be. Don't do any racing, but do a lot of aggressive group riding and like to perform. Comfort is important, but performance is my primary priority, and it's something I'm always looking for in a bike. You know, with that in mind, especially my focus on performance, the ENVE Fray was very intriguing to me. Its geometry is aggressive relative to endurance or all-road bikes from Specialized, from Giant, from Canyon, and Trek. When I compare the so-called all-road bikes from those companies with the equivalent reach, you find that the stack is 15 to 20 millimeters taller, so you're always going to be sitting up a little bit more. And if you look at the head tube and the seat tube and the trail numbers on those bikes compared to the ENVE, it really confirms that they are more relaxed bikes, and this is a more aggressive bike. At the same time, it's not nearly as aggressive as race bikes, yet it has some of the features that you do get on race bikes. For example, the aero tubing on this bike, the shapes of those tubes are very similar to what ENVE has on their race bike, the Melee. It also allows for wider tires, up to 38 millimeters with a 2x group set, like I have on this bike. But I like to ride in the 30 to 32 millimeter range. This bike is optimized for its handling, or its handling is optimized for tires in the 31 to 35 millimeter width. And it comes in at a very respectable weight. This bike is a 56, size 56 bike with 42 centimeter wide bars, 120 millimeter long stem. It's got the bottle cages and the out front, and with 35 millimeter tires comes in right at about 17 pounds, or about 7.9 kilograms. And for me, ideally, I'd probably ride a size smaller with narrower bars, and as I mentioned, probably 32 millimeter tires, which would bring the weight down somewhat from there as well. So how does the ENVE Fray perform? Well, after riding it on road, well-maintained gravel and some light spread gravel, and on setups with 30 millimeter tires, 32 millimeters, and 35s, I'd say it's a very talented, broadly talented, in fact, bike. The Fray draws from some characteristics of a racing bike. It's quick, it's confident, it handles very well, it corners and accelerates well. Not quite to a race bike level, but certainly more than the average endurance bike. It's also very good climbing, and it maintains its momentum on the flats very well. You know, a lot of race bikes, you choose one or the other. It's either a light bike that climbs well but doesn't hold its momentum as well, or it's a heavier bike that really speeds well on the flats and rollers. Well, the Fray does a bit of both. Off-road, you know, it has its limits, as do all road bikes. I wouldn't take it on more than a Type 2 gravel surface. By that I mean a pretty well-packed surface of dirt with some spread gravel, some loose gravel, but nothing more technical than that. Certainly not a Class 4 or even a Type 3 where you've got some big rocks. But on those Type 1 and Type 2 dirt and spread gravel surfaces, it really is very, very light and very nimble compared to, my gravel bike, which is going to be a couple, 3 pounds heavier, obviously with the heavier frame and the bigger tires. Overall, I call the ENVE Fray a performance endurance bike. It's as comfortable as an endurance bike. Some of those that focus exclusively on comfort and are more upright than this one. And it draws on, as I mentioned earlier, some aspects from racing bikes that give it a whole lot more performance in terms of its speed, its acceleration, its climbing ability, its handling ability, than the average endurance bike that's focused on comfort. So overall, performance endurance. Maybe that's a new category of endurance bike. I've ridden a few that fall in that category. This one clearly is separated from the endurance bikes that you'll get from Specialized or Giant or Trek or Canyon, and more on the realm of what you'll experience from a Parley or perhaps some of the other smaller brands that are trying to pack some performance into their endurance bikes. I found the ENVE Fray really allows me to push myself as hard as I can without letting me get into trouble. I like that the bike comes as a frame set that you can spec out from there either through an online or in-store dealer with the bar, stem, and seat post combination that you want, and with the group set and wheel set that you want. That's something that you can't always do, and most of the time, frankly, can't do with the big brands, which have, for each size, a specified bar and stem size, and have different levels for group sets and wheel sets that you can't really play with. Secondly, as I described in my riding experience, the Fray is really more on the performance end of the endurance or all-road bikes. It's really focused on a good balance between getting a lot of performance out of a comfortable bike, not getting a comfortable bike with some performance capabilities. I also like that it has a tall head tube, which means you don't need to put as many spacers in there to get your stack right. You can have more of a slammed look if that's what you prefer. And it's probably more aero having the head tube breaking the wind than having your spacers do it. The ENVE brand, at least in my mind and perhaps in a lot of consumers' minds, is associated with quality builds, with innovative products, and a bit of cachet. And of course you pay for all those things, it's part of the equation, more than you would, say, a Giant bike or some of the lower priced Trek or Specialized bikes. But it's no more expensive than some of the higher end bikes from at least Specialized and some of the other well-known brands like Pinarello. Now this bike comes in what ENVE calls ash, what I call battleship gray. Not one of my favorite colors, as was the Venom, sort of a green, gold, and sand, and kind of an off-white. Those three colors are phasing out, and they're newer colors, which I like a fair amount more. The agave blue, the GT silver, and the toffee brown, I think are a step up. Secondly, I'm not a big fan of these top tube screws where you can put a bento box. If I'm going to be riding on the road most of the time, 70% or so, I don't see myself putting a box on there. And if I'm going off-road, well, perhaps I would use it, but for most of the time, it's not something that I'd love to see. And speaking of off-road, I would love to have one bike that does it all, including having up to 45mm tires. This bike doesn't do it, as really none do in the all-road or endurance category. And so it's limited in how much off-road I can do or how much off-road I'm willing to test, unless I really know the surface I'm going to be riding and have reconned the ride. What am I unsure about? Don't really love it, don't really hate it, still thinking about it. Really two things. One is the aero bars up top. It's kind of a hybrid. It's not super wide, it's not super narrow. It's got kind of an interesting necking down here near the stem cap. Haven't really loved it just yet, but perhaps it's something I can get used to. Also the cargo storage area, this is very popular on most bikes now, and you can put a minimal amount of gear in there. You can't put an electric tire inflator in there. It isn't wide enough or deep enough to do that. So that's something I carry all the time now in place of the traditional CO2 inflators, and something I'd like to see on this bike. So where do I come down on the ENVE Fray at the end of the day? Well, I like it. I like it quite a bit. I think it's a performance-oriented endurance bike that's both comfortable and does the kinds of things I want to do when I'm out riding hard. I think it's really one of the benchmarks to compare for all-road endurance bikes going forward. Let me know in the comments below which bikes you're interested in having me review, and I'll try to make that happen. You can see links to the bikes we have reviewed and other wheels and kit and related gear in that description box below. As always, feel free to like, subscribe, and let your friends know about what we're up to here at In the Know Cycling. Thanks very much for watching, and we'll see you again in the next video.